Spiritual Israel is a phrase that trips up a lot of people, or it causes a lot of confusion, mainly because of the Christian church. Now, the Christian church is to blame for the confusion regarding, and I'm saying confusion because they've taken a phrase and they've redefined what it means biblically. The Christian church have coined the term spiritual Israel to be any nationality of people who, just because they believe in the Bible, they're a spiritual Israelite. It's straight up buffoonery, right? And I'm addressing this because I recently put up a video and a lot of people kept chiming in talking about some spiritual Israel jargon. I think 3 or 4 or 5 people. So I just want to make something quick in and out on the subject. I want to start with what this guy is talking about here. You'll see it for yourself with your own eyes.
And so the biblical word for church is the same word for synagogue, and it's a translation of the same word. And the biblical word for church, ecclesia, is used for the translation of the Old Testament word, which speaks about the congregation of Israel journeying in the wilderness. What is the church? The church is the spiritual Israel, which speaks about the congregation of Israel journeying in the wilderness. What is the church? The church is the spiritual Israel. Doesn't replace Israel, it joins Israel. It's a spiritual version of Israel. And it's like a pilgrim people who are journeying through the wilderness to the promised land. So what does Paul say? Ephesians 2. Actually, turn to it for a moment. Ephesians 2. What does he say about you you were not born of Israel, but you were born again of Israel? Ephesians 2 says at the beginning, it speaks about the Gentiles who have come into the faith, and it says this. Ephesians 2 verse 11. Therefore remember that formerly you, the Gentiles in the flesh, meaning according to the flesh only, who are called unto uncircumcision by the so-called circumcision, which is performed in the flesh by human hands. Remember, you were at that time separated from Messiah, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now you in Messiah, Yeshua, you were formerly far off, you've been brought near by the blood of Messiah. Now how have you been brought near? Look at verse 18. For through him we both, Jew and Gentile, have our access in one spirit in the Father. So then you are no longer strangers, no longer aliens, you are fellow citizens with the saints and are of God's household.
Now I agree with everything that this guy just said. The only problem, and it's the most biggest and most obvious problem, is that, he's addressing a casting off and a returning of a people singular. Again, he's addressing a casting off and the bringing back in of a people. And then that leads us into B, is that his audience is not those people who were casted off in the first place and being brought back in. See, I agree with everything he's saying. It's just I don't agree with who he's telling it to, because it has nothing to do with them. And then it's supporting this. He didn't say it, but you can see based upon the context in his audience, he's saying that any nationality of people is a spiritual Israelite. Even though he didn't directly say it, he's implying it. So with just the words he's saying, I agree. I disagree with the audience he's telling it to, because they were not the people who were cast off, and then they're not the people that are being brought back in. Now the Bible actually says in it who was cast off and who will be brought back. The only thing is that it's located in the Testament that most Christians love to hate. It's not in their most popular testament, but in Hosea 1:10 we see that it says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, this is them only, the children of Israel, you are not my people. See, the them here is them being cast off. You are not my people. There it shall be said unto them, the same them, Israel, you are the sons of the living God. This is the them being brought back into the citizenship that this weirdo was talking about. So again, this is why I agree with what he's saying. It's straight out of the Bible, but I disagree that he's putting ideas into people's minds that there's this spiritual Israel for non-Israelite people. I disagree with that. And then second, this also causes a problem because usually when a studied individual is addressing this or correcting this, it's in the context of the weirdo of the church, whereas spiritual Israel, automatically there's the mind that this is the doctrine of all non-Israelites being Israelites simply because they read a book.
Those people are the context of the entire Bible. Right. It's only talking about Israel, not no spiritual Israel.
Yeah, I know it's buffoonery. However, the Bible does speak on a spiritual Israel. And as it is written, we prove all things here. As Paul says in Romans 7:14, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So the law is spiritual. See, what a lot of people don't understand is here's A, the Bible is only about Israelites, and B, not all of these Israelites believed in God. They were carnal. A lot of these Israelites didn't keep the law. I'll make that clear because somebody will try to slice a stick of gum in half sideways. So this is where we get the true term of Jew and Gentile, because the actual quote unquote Jews were the followers of Christ, meaning keeping the law, which was spiritual. Then you had those Israelites, which were called Gentiles because they were behaving like Gentiles. They were behaving carnally. You know, Matthew 4 shows Israelites being called Gentiles, specifically by tribe. You know, all through the Old and New Testament, you have Israelites being called Gentiles because they were behaving like those Gentile nations. You know, in books that were removed, we see that it was against the law to call yourself an Israelite or you would be put to death. So there's a lot of history that these New Age Christians don't understand because they've deemed the Bible to be this open public book about every nation on this earth, and it doesn't work that way because the Bible just does not talk about those things. There's a lot of unpretty things that the book talks about, and it's not in favor of certain people or certain nations. That's just something you have to deal with. But as far as the spiritual Israelite doctrine and addressing that, we have to be careful when we say that there's no spiritual Israel. There is. If you're preaching on street corners, you're an Israelite keeping and teaching the law, you're spiritual. You're a spiritual Israelite. If you're out there letting Jakes know that, hey, you're being wicked by keeping Halloween and folly days and eating swine and this and that, like you're literally being a spiritual Israelite because you're teaching and doing the law. It has nothing to do with this outer nation inclusion that these churches talk about. I just wanted to clear that up. That's all for now, as it is written, and I'm out.
You are now about to witness.
Okay, the first part, it says you were strangers excluded from what? The commonwealth of Israel. Then at the last verse, it says you are no longer strangers, aliens. You are now fellow citizens. In what? What are you what are you a citizen of? What you were excluded from before, you are now a citizen of what? Israel. You are a citizen now. You were excluded from the commonwealth of Israel. Now you are a citizen in the commonwealth of Israel. So you who are born again, you weren't born of Israel, you are born again of Israel. And so therefore the church, in the same word as synagogue, is the spiritual Israel. And so what does that make you? It makes you not only a citizen of Israel, more than you're a citizen of America or any other nation, you are a citizen of God's Israel. What does that make you? That makes you an Israelite. Or it makes you an Israeli. Now you say, wait a minute. I can handle Israelite in the Bible. I can understand Israelites, the Israelites walk through the world, the Israelites. But Israeli, that's a different realm here. When you think of an Israelite, you think of somebody from the Old Testament, most likely. Ancient times. But when you think of an Israeli, what do you think of? You think of a whole different kind of person. You think of somebody in Israel right now. You think of the people farming the land, the soldiers, Israelis. But you say, what? But do you know something? You may not know this. When the Bible speaks of Israelites, it never speaks of Israelites in the original language. It says Israeli. When it talks about the Israelites, it's not. It's the Israelis in the Bible. That's the word. We added the ites. When you get into English, you got all the ites. But in the original, there's no ites. Jebusites, Canaanites. It's not that. It's Canaanite, Israeli. They added the ites. No ites in the Bible. E's in the Bible.